In this example, we're going to see how to use the DOM to extract and manipulate some document content, building on what we've already learned. So here in the example snippets, scroll down to the extracting and manipulating data section right here, and open up DOM example 2 _ start. And you can see that this example is kind of similar to the previous one, where we've got some XML data embedded in the document, and we've got some divs that we've added here now. So instead of using a JavaScript alert, this time we're going to extract the XML data from this structure right here and insert it into these various divs here in the document. We also have a couple of buttons that we can use to show and hide the email address, and we'll fill out that code later as well. All right, so over in the snippets, let's start by copying this line here, the window.add_event_listener line. So we'll copy that, and we'll put it in the script tag up here. And what we're doing is waiting for the window to load, and when the window loads, we're going to call the populate fields function. Okay, so let's do that. And populate fields is right here. So let's go ahead and copy these lines right up here until the end of the var email statement. So we'll copy that, and we'll paste it in here. And I'm going to go ahead and close off this function. All right. If you went through the previous example, then this code should look pretty familiar to you. We're using getElementById and getElementsByTagName to retrieve content from the XML data section. Now, in this case, however, we're not going to be using a JavaScript alert. We're going to take the values that we've extracted and put them into the div tags down here at the bottom of the file. So let's do that. Let's save this first. Let's go back to the snippets. And this time, we're going to copy these lines right here. We'll copy these lines and paste them in. All right. So let's take a look at what's going on. We're using the getElementById function on the document element to get references to each one of these divs. You can see that the divs in question have IDs, name, phone, etc. And in this case, we're using the inner HTML property to set the content of each one of those divs. So when I retrieve the value of the name tag up here, I'm going to insert it into the document down here using the inner HTML property. And I'm going to do that for each one of the various pieces of data. So let's save, and let's try out what we have so far. So over here in the file system, I'm going to start up the example. And you can see that that's working, right? Here's the contents of the XML, and it's being inserted into the document. Now, these two buttons don't do anything yet, but we're about to change that. So let's go back to the code. All right, back here in the code, let's go to the snippets file. And let's scroll down to these lines right here. We'll copy these lines and paste them into the file. And back in the snippets, we'll also copy these functions, the hide email and show email functions. And we'll paste those in above the window.add_event_listener call. All right, so let's take a look at what we've done. These two lines use a function called querySelector. And querySelector is sort of like document.getElementById, but it's a little bit more powerful because you can pass in pretty much any kind of CSS selector to retrieve document content. It's a way of using CSS selectors like parent-child relationships and so on. You pass that in the string here for the content that you want to get. Now, when I pass in a pound or hash sign followed by a string, that tells querySelector to retrieve the element with this ID. So it's sort of like calling document.getElementById, but querySelector is a lot more powerful than just that. Once I have a reference to the two buttons, I'm going to add event listeners for the click event on each one of those buttons. One of the events we'll call hide email, one of the events we'll call show email. So if we look at the contents of those functions, hide email simply calls getElementById on the email element and sets its style display to be none. So we're directly manipulating the CSS style of the email element so that we hide it and we show it. You can see here the show email just simply takes that none value off of the display property. All right, so let's save. Let's go back to the browser. All right, now let's refresh. Okay, so now we can click show email and hide email, right? And you can see that when I click hide email, it's being hidden, and show email is showing it. So using the DOM, you can also extract information from the document and insert it other places.